Welcome to the Hidden Wild curriculum. This is lesson 1 of the middle school curriculum and covers food webs and energy flow. This is a 7th grade standard, L 17.1, where students are asked to explain and illustrate the roles of and relationships among producers, consumers, decomposers in the process of energy transfer in a food web. In this particular lesson, the objective is for students to be able to describe and explain the roles of and relationships among the producers, consumers, and decomposers, and the energy transfer within a food web. Some of the aligned science vocabulary and academic vocabulary are listed here at the beginning of the lesson plan. There are also inquiry or essential questions, a statement of student mastery, and the summary of the lesson. The lesson begins with the engage portion. Students will watch a short video, part of the original Hidden Wild documentary. This video is about 11 minutes long and shows how the 3 students from right here in Palm Beach County began their journey through the Loxahatchee Slough and the animals and experiences they encountered on their first few days. As your students are watching the video, think about these questions and stop the video at the important times to discuss the terms abiotic and biotic. You'll also want to ask the students how they would feel about this trip and whether they'd be interested in taking a trip like this here in Palm Beach County. It's important to remember that at this point, it's not necessary to correct students' incorrect thinking. As you're facilitating discussion, make sure you make a note of any student misconceptions you hear about and plan to target them later in the lesson. The second phase of the lesson is the explore, where students will explore native organisms here in Florida and what role they play in food webs. The links here will take you to the appropriate resources, including a YouTube video of a pig frog and images of organisms that students can use to build their first food web. There are also recommended procedures and questions that you can ask students to challenge their thinking. In this section, you will continue to monitor their thinking and their misconceptions. In the explain section, students will begin to identify those organisms and place them in the correct trophic levels: producer, primary consumer, secondary, tertiary consumers, and decomposers. They'll also label each organism with either the common name or the scientific name. We've provided a template for you of energy flow slides that your students can use. There are directions on the first slide, and students can fill in the slides as they go. You may need to show students how to research images and insert photos onto a Google slide. You can allow your students to work together, but don't let them use the same organisms, and encourage them to look up different plants and animals that are native to Florida. You want to make sure that the slides are correctly labeled, that the organism is in the correct trophic level, and that there are 2 to 6 as the students are assigned. In the elaborate phase, students will come together to build their own food chain. So they'll take the organisms that they have already researched and start to work together in groups to form a food chain. The directions are here under the recommended procedures. And for the assessment portion, you'll have the students stand to present their food chain, where each student represents one organism of a trophic level. Make sure the students listen carefully, that they have the organisms in the correct order, and that they show the energy flow as the food chain builds. In the final portion of this lesson, the evaluate, students will take their food chains and combine them to build a food web. They're going to work together with at least one other group, possibly more, to build the food web. Students will identify themselves as producers, consumers, or decomposers, and they will say what they are and point to where the energy flows from their organism to the next. You'll want to make sure you engage students in discussions around how this food web is constructed. For example, you might ask which organisms are at the bottom and why. You might ask students to describe the flow of energy in their web. How does energy flow? Can it flow downwards? Why or why not? Can energy be recycled? Why or why not? You want to assess students on their understanding of the way energy flows through a food web and on the correct relationships between the organisms in the food web. Be sure to check out lessons 2 and 3 in the Hidden Wild curriculum for more exciting curriculum based around the Hidden Wild documentary.